Hello and welcome back to Pixels with Purpose, where the API returns an error, but the status code is 200. I am Salma, Head of Developer Education at Nordcraft. I'm joined by my co-host Andreas, who is co-founder of Nordcraft. And talking of Nordcraft, Pixels with Purpose is sponsored by Nordcraft, the world's first web development engine. Nordcraft combines a state-of-the-art web framework with a suite of advanced visual tools that empowers designers and developers to collaborate and build high-performance web apps with pixel-perfect precision. Plus, it's all open source. And today we are joined by Taylor Desseyn, who is VP of Global Community at Talk.dev, which is a community-first jobs platform that specializes in leveling up people in tech across the globe. And Taylor is on a mission to build a community of 100 million software engineers. Welcome to the podcast, Taylor.
What's going on, y'all? Pumped to be here.
So what are we talking about today, Andreas?
Well, we are going to talk about career development for developers. And basically, how do you get into it? How do you progress as a software engineer, and general advice on what you should focus on?
I love it. I'm glad we weren't talking about APIs or anything, because I'd been in trouble. I'd be in big trouble.
No, my intro has nothing to do with the podcast at hand.
No, it's just whatever inspiration hits you.
I'm having a lot of fun with it.
I like your ambition of creating a community of 100 million developers. To my knowledge, the global developer population is around 30 at the moment, because we did a lot of research on how many are there actually. It turns out there is a pretty good total addressable market for any dev tool company.
Sure.
But yeah. So
it's for me, that 100 million is really just like an overall arching theme of I want everyone to know who we are across the globe, whether we place them in jobs or not. My goal is for anybody in tech, specifically engineers, to be able to get help from us, and so yeah, we're in this for the long haul. I'm in this for the long haul.
Excellent.
What help do you think software engineers need in this day and age?
Man, how long we got? 9 hours, full day. We can go and break all this down. I think I think the first thing I would probably say is, I think break it down the most simply is I think people just need to talk to each other. And I think people need to get out of their shells. I had a wonderful opportunity to interview Salma on my podcast last week. And it was a great conversation. And I think, we kind of unpacked about being nice, stepping out of your comfort zone. And I think a lot of people, so I created this community at Torque, and really my entire focus is to create an environment that I needed when I started my career in 2011. And what that community looked like is to really shed light and to break down on what career growth, job search looks like, because I think it's incredibly daunting. And I think now, because of social media and people putting out way more content online than ever before, I think it's a lot more attainable. But I think there's a lot of people out there saying a lot of weird things. And so we try not to be weird about it, but really I would say at the end of the day, and I know I sound like a broken record, but it comes down to networking and reaching out to the person that you may know or may not know and be like, hey, would love to chat, would love to learn. Because I think all of us kind of, I'm a huge introvert. I just usually am jacked up on caffeine. But I think like a lot of times, even putting me in a large conference scenario, I still hole up and get nervous, right? And so a lot of what I preach is my own self-encouragement. And I think folks need to start by literally just getting out of their shell and having more conversations and getting more involved in whatever market, whatever online community they're a part of. I think that's a great first step.
So I think that's a really great point. You caught me early on saying there's a lot of bad advice out there. So I think actually it might make sense to just pause a little bit on that and say, like, what is some of the bad advice that you think is being shared all too often? Like, what are some examples of that?
Yeah, I think the first thing I've been seeing on the interwebs lately is like, tech hiring's dead. Like, it's not dead. There are a ton of people getting jobs, right? And I think I really want to reiterate that a lot of the tort community is getting jobs, whether through us or whether it's through our network and helping others. I think the misconception is that tech hiring is dead because you now can't spell React and get a job, right? I mean, now you actually have to network. You actually have to put yourself out there. And I think when it comes to I think that's the first bad advice I'm seeing, is that people are still hiring, but you actually have to work for it now. I mean, prime example, there's, I've talked to some folks that are some friends, and they didn't even know that, like, you could literally, and I'm being dead serious with this, you can just Google jobs that are like similar to me and like what I do, and jobs pop up on Google. It's crazy. It's a crazy concept. So again, I think a lot of people think everything's going to come to you like it did in 2021, 2022, and that just is not the case anymore. So I think a lot of people are like, well, tech hiring's dead because I don't have hiring managers crawling through my windows at night trying to hire me. And at the end of the day, like that's not the case anymore, but people are still hiring. So I want to address that. Like, tech hiring is not dead. I think another bad advice too is like AI is going to come take all of our jobs. It's not. I think you have to learn how to use it. I mean, admittedly, I'm not in it as much. I have people on my team who use AI a ton to help operationalize what we do. But I also think that you have to know how to use it, but it's not going to take your job. Like, I haven't spoken to anyone yet. And again, I'm only one piece of the pie on a very big pie. But for me, I haven't had anybody come to me yet and go, I was laid off because of AI. Now, that may exist, and I'm just not aware of that. But for me, it's like, hey, I'm not specifically laid off because of AI. You probably were just laid off because the company's not doing well, and they need to make budget cuts. So I would say those are the first two things just off the rip that I'm hearing bad advice for.
So you say tech hiring isn't dead. I completely agree with you. I mean, I got a new job a couple of months ago, but you see there are people out there who claim to be submitting hundreds and hundreds of job applications with no leads, get ghosted, don't get through to interview stage. What would be your advice to them?
I mean, listen, I think at the end of the day, there's so much that comes into the job search as it does dating. I want to do a whole series about it. But I mean, really, at the end of the day, like, hey, listen, I got rejected a ton before I met my wife. All right. It just is the nature of dating, and it is the nature of the job search, right? I think people are, like to use excuses, right? And I think people's approaches are really bad. I had my podcast yesterday with Lawrence Lockhart. He got a job by cold applying to 40, what did he say? It's like 47 jobs in 87 days, and he got a job in 87 days. Now, what we went over is he did not mass apply. He was very selective on the jobs he submitted to. I think we as human beings confuse activity with productivity, in a sense of, oh, I'm doing something. Yeah, I should be rewarded. And that's just not what it is. Like, that's just because you submit your resume. Like, I've seen LinkedIn posts. I'm sure we've seen it. Like, I've submitted my resume 10,000 times and I've got no callbacks. Well, probably because you're not being intentional. Probably because you're just submitting to jobs you're not even qualified for. And so I think people have to be intentional. And I think people need to stop mass applying. I would say back in the day, I was totally against cold applying, but I do think it needs to be one of the many tools in your tool belt. Listen, I'm not the best with tools. My wife does all the handiwork, right? I'm just going to say what it is. She's great. I barely know how to use a hammer, right? But I also know that it takes many tools to build something, right? You have to have a hammer. You have to have a screwdriver. You have to have nails. You have to do all these things, right? That's about as far as I can go, right? And so it's the same thing with the job search. mass cold applying is one of the many tools in your tool belt that you need to be using. Again, I think the kind of the theme throughout this is intentionality. You have to be intentional right now. The whole mass applying does not work anymore.
Yeah, I think you're very much right about that. I've done a fair amount of recruitment myself. Obviously, I've been looking for job as well, so I've been on both sides. And I think, as you say, that the market is probably a bit different now.
Yes.
It's worth noting that there's a stat that from Indeed.com, they released this chart about number of open applications on the platform, and you sort of had this massive spike during COVID, and then it fell to below where it was before again, right? And so every about 45 minutes, there's a post on LinkedIn about why that means AI is taking all the dev jobs, right? And the reality of that chart is that what actually happened was COVID and a potential recession after that. Whether or not AI has any impact of that is actually impossible to determine from that chart. But also, companies use this as an opportunity to actually cut down on their staff because they probably had overhired a bit before, right?
Yeah, I mean, for me, like, I think going back to excuses, I sound very like boomer right now, like the boomer generation about like, stop using excuses. But like, for me, it's like, again, I feel like people are like, oh, they're tech hiring's dead. AI's taking my job. It's these excuses. And at the end of the day, like, you have to actually do the thing. You have to put yourself out there. You have to create a project. Like your, junior devs, your capstone project from a boot camp isn't enough anymore, right? People want to see more, and you have to level up, right? I have 2 kids, right? Me as an individual was very different before I had 2 kids, right? I have a friend of mine that's like, when you have more and more kids, you kind of have to level up, right? And you can't be using that excuse. And I feel like, going back to excuses, I feel like during COVID, when that hiring was happening, where everybody was getting hired, we look back on it fondly like an ex-girlfriend or boyfriend. We're like, oh, they used to be great, right? And you're holding on to that. Like, they used to be great, so I'm going to hold on to that. But at the end of the day, like, the market is not that anymore. And I think as soon as people can get that in their brains, that we will never experience probably that growth again, and that this is the new normal, and the faster you can accept that, I think the more successful you're going to be on your job search.
Yeah, I think that's very true. Personally, for me, like, I wasn't looking for work at all in that period, so I didn't experience the recent golden days. But I did work as a contractor in London a few years back, and I think my personal best was 48 minutes from I ended one contract till I had the next one lined up, because it just so happened, right? And it was wonderful times, and it was fun, and it never took me more than, I mean, a week would be extreme if it took that long. But the other thing is, it had nothing to do with me. Like, I had a CV, it looked fine, but none of these people had any idea who I was or what I could do. They just needed someone. And so that's the thing that changed. Like, they needed insert replaceable software engineer here. There was one, we'll take that guy. And I think that's the thing that changes now. You have to sell yourself. You can't just raise your hand, right?
Yeah, and I've I do some like one-on-one stuff like on the weekends, like with folks that need some extra help. And one of the things that I consistently see that people are struggling with is just general activity. So one of the reasons why I talk about the job search, and I try to dumb it down as much as I feasibly can, is because essentially, when you are looking for a job, you become your own recruiter. Well, guess what I've been for the last 13 years as a recruiter, right? And so when I talk to people, I'll never I ask them this question every time. How many people are you talking to a week? Not interviewing. There's been very few people that I've done one-on-ones with that say more than like 5 a week. And it's like, for me, it's like, well, if you're not just talking to people, learning from them, figuring out who's hiring, where the conversations are, how do you expect to get anything done. If all you're focused on is this lobbying of cold applying, right? I mean, like prime example how this works, right? I messaged Sama. I said, hey, do you want to come on my, well, actually, this was beforehand. Sama, you posted about this podcast. I went for it. I knew of you because of social, but then I just slid in your DMs. I was like, hey, I would love to come on if that's okay. Right. And then I asked you to come on my podcast. And then now we're podcasting. So now you and I have seen each other twice in like 1 week.
Yes.
Right. Which is wonderful.
We're talking.
Right. But that's what I'm saying. Now I've had 2 unique conversations with you that I would not have had if I didn't initially reach out. And I think like, if we want to break it down a simple level, like that's it. Right. I'm not looking for a job. Sama doesn't have a job right now, but I will tell you, if I ever get laid off, guess who I'm probably going to hit up? I'm probably going to hit up Sama because we've had intentional conversations. So again, I mean, I would say that's like as simple as I can make it.
And I think that comes back to what I was talking to you about in the podcast that you invited me on, is that I think a lot of people are really holding out, that they want things to happen really quickly.
Yes.
Because they get frustrated and they expect things to happen because there are loads of jobs to apply for out there. But you cannot overestimate the power of the long game in anything. You know, if you're going to go back to the relationship analogy, the long game of a marriage and bringing up a child, like you have to really invest time in that, and you grow through it and you learn stuff through it. And it's the same with a career. And but I do understand that, you know, I think I came from a place where back in the day, before I was like on the internet, I hated the word networking. I was afraid to talk to people at conferences. And I think maybe because I didn't have that body of work around me yet to give me that confidence to say, oh, I've done this, this, and this. So I understand and can empathize with people in that position. And so what advice would you give them? Maybe people who have got maybe 1 or 2 projects and are not used to building relationships in intentional ways. How would you suggest they approach this?
I think a great way to approach any communication, and this is what I try to do, is to learn. Right? People are like, well, I don't have anything to give. Well, that's not the point. The point is to learn, right? And so like if you know, I didn't know, well, I still don't know because I'm not technical, what Nordcraft does, right? And I was trying to network with Salma, I would message her and be like, hey, so I've been following you a lot on Blue Sky. All right. So first off, I actually spoke about this last week in Ohio at a tech conference. What makes a good DM is admiration, flattery, right? Hey, listen, I saw you, I see you, I love your content, right? Second thing I would ask is, hey, you guys do blah, blah, blah. I have wanted to learn more about blah, blah, blah. Would love to chat if you have like 6 minutes. Now, I say 6 minutes, 4 minutes, 7 minutes, because I don't know about you, but when my mom texts me and goes, hey, I want to talk for 5 minutes, how long is that typically, right? It's usually a solid half an hour, right? Ain't no one got time for a half an hour chat in the networking world. And so if I can message someone and be like, hey, I would love to chat with you for like 4 minutes, like quick call, would love to know what you guys do, maybe so we can implement it here within our organization. Or even if you're a junior developer, hey, I'm trying to learn about, you know, what you guys are doing just so I can better myself. You're probably going to be more likely to take the call. And even if you don't have time to take the call, you're probably going to be open to having a more of an in-depth DM conversation, right? And so for me, I think junior devs, entry level, coming out of college, university, have actually the best platform to go for the ask. Because I truly think everybody in today's world actually genuinely wants to help people. And if you can come at it from, hey, I'm trying to learn how to do APIs, or I'm trying to learn how to do LLMs, or hey, I'm trying to figure out how to do this, most people are going to be willing to want to chat with you, at least briefly, to help you get you directed into the right way. And I think especially junior folks need to take advantage of that. I mean, even when I was at React Miami, like I go around and like I go up to booths and I go, hey, like, what do you guys do? Like, tell me about yourself. Like, oh, so is it like this, right? And I'm not technical and I can do it, right? And so that's what I'm saying. I think curiosity is such a superpower in today's world. And if you can be genuinely curious about trying to learn, I think that is a great way to network and such an easy way to make friends.
Very interesting you mentioned the word curiosity, because in the last episode of Pixels with Purpose that we recorded just a few hours ago, that was another topic that came up, and that kind of finished off the whole theme of the day when talking about design with David. So I guess it applies to so much.
It does. I think just genuinely being interested. Like, I feel like one of the unlocks of my career is I was a tech recruiter that was genuinely interested in software engineers. Like for real. I remember recruiting my first project. I was recruited on like a Java project back in 2011. I didn't know what Java was, but I was really curious on like what these engineers were building and how they built it and what they did. So I was just on the phone with Java developers being like, what is it? Like, what do you do? That really endeared me to that community in that city I was recruiting in, because I just was genuinely curious. And again, I mean, the people that I've met through my podcast and through the community, like, they're just genuinely curious on how to do things. And it's so much more fun to have a conversation when someone's curious about something.
Absolutely agree. And I think this is maybe the one thing that's really key, no matter where you are in your career, right? Because I mean, especially when we were recruiting in my former role, where I hired a lot more people than I have so far in this company, we would get, especially for junior developers, and this has always been the case, even in the good old days of 2022, you always get a lot of junior dev applications, and probably half of them are people who haven't even never opened a code editor. So really aren't relevant, but even the other half, there's just a lot of them. So you do always have a lot of competition. But if you are someone who has actually built something outside of, I was assigned a project during this boot camp. If you actually can show me a project that you've built where you cared about building it, it doesn't have to be great code. I really don't care. Just show me that you did something other than an assigned task, right? And then you are a curious person. You are in top 1% right there. That is the two things you need to do. It is very simple. It takes definitely less than a month to show that. You're going to be in top 1% of junior engineers right there, because most people don't.
No, absolutely. And I want to drive this point home too. So I was interviewing Kelly Vaughn on my podcast, and somebody asked, because we do live, and somebody asked a question. They were like, hey, portfolio or build in public? And I thought it was a very interesting question. And this was Kelly's response. This does not go for everybody. It's just Kelly's response. And I tend to agree with this based off my experiences. Kelly's like, if you submit me your LinkedIn profile, I'm going to go check it out. And she was like, I was hiring for an API engineer. She was like, if you have been writing content on your LinkedIn about APIs and you have written documentation I can see where you've listed out what you've worked on, what you're learning, she goes, that's going to go further for me than looking at some portfolio. She was like, I love to see when people, she goes, I check out everybody's social media, which again, incredibly important. Don't be a Debbie Downer on social media. I got to say that. There's a lot of people out there that are frustrated. I understand. You're tired. Please do not voice that on social. Your future employer, they will go to your socials. They will see it. They don't want a Debbie Downer. Nobody wants to work with an Eeyore. And so, but she said, hey, I absolutely look at what you're writing, and I think that could play a huge part in how I evaluate you for a job. So I do want to say that I'm not asking people to turn into a Mr. Beast. I'm asking people to merely talk about what you're learning online, and I think LinkedIn's a great platform to do that.
Yeah, but I mean, the platform probably doesn't matter so much if you're submitting it, right?
Yeah.
But I agree. I think it's very different how comfortable people are with writing, but it's such a good way to show that you care and that you're going to do something, and that it, again, get past this bare minimum, right?
Companies don't want to take a risk on anybody anymore. Like there's no margin for error at this point. Like they need to hire for this specific skill set. They need to know you can come in and do it. And so if you have the supporting documentation, whether it's a project you've spun up on your own, whether it's written content that you've put out online, maybe it's a conference talk, maybe you've spoken at a meetup locally on the topic, please have that on your LinkedIn. I think it's incredibly important. Like those are the things that really, really move the needle. And again, I mean, going back to the marriage thing, like there's not a ton of wiggle room. Usually when you date, you try to look for a partner, right? So like they got to know what they're getting themselves into. And so, make sure you have that documentation to be able to support that in the interview.
And it doesn't also necessarily need to be formal documentation or formal writing. I mean, back in the day when I used to hire and manage and mentor junior devs, one of my biggest asks of them and suggestions was to keep a learning log. Yes. Every day you're going to be learning something new, and just write it down in bullet point form. Put some links to some information that you found. Maybe detail everything you Googled that day. And that's going to tell a story. And, if you do have a job, then that's kind of good ammunition for putting together stuff if you want to apply for another job. Or if you don't have a job, you're going to be looking at stuff on the internet. And hopefully you're going to be curious enough to be doing some reading around your profession. And if you're maybe building a side project, learn. When you learn, log what you learn. And that, again, it might not be like in the best format, but it's something if you don't feel comfortable, putting out listicles on LinkedIn and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, so somebody from the Torque community, he's an ambassador, his name Richard Choi, and I think Richard does a great job of this. He always he does these Zoom calls with people in the Torque community, and he always does he does a picture with them at the end, and they always do some sort of funny face, and he posts about it on LinkedIn, and he tags that person, and he just talks about what he talked about in the conversation, and I think that's so powerful. Because the way LinkedIn works is, and this was my last talk last week about the importance of LinkedIn. The way LinkedIn works, like if I tag you all, my followers are going to see y'all's names and your followers are going to see my name. So there's kind of this, there's this tidal wave effect that happens with networking. And again, Richard's not out here typing 16 paragraphs and making it professional. He's literally just posting essentially a selfie and tagging the person on what they talked about. And I mean, I bring him up all the time because he's always on my feed. So it doesn't have to be this crazy professional thing that you have to do.
Andreas does that all the time.
I do that all the time. And I mean, for a lot of this content, because I know this is an area where if you're sitting out there, especially if you're a, maybe not junior, but younger developer, and you're looking for a new job and having a hard time, you have probably heard people say all this before, right? And I'm sure there's a lot of you that find it incredibly intimidating to go do a meetup talk or to write a blog post about a topic, because what if you get it wrong and then the people are going to say, this person doesn't know. The reality is, first of all, you're probably not going to get it that wrong. So it's still much better than not having it out. And the other thing is, the person isn't actually going to watch your meetup talk. Recruiters are busy. They're not going to sit down and watch a 20-minute talk. I didn't watch all of Salma's talk when we hired her. It just seemed very long, and I'm sure it was very good.
Love it.
Conference talk. The first 5 minutes was great.
Crush that first.
But then I figured the rest would just be more of that. It was that's perfect, right? So, you're not going to watch a half an hour talk when you're trying to hire someone, you're going through. But seeing that this is a person who was this is a topic I'm interested in, I'm passionate about, I'm curious about, I want to give a talk. The very fact that it exists is 90% of the value of having it for recruitment purpose.
Yep.
So just don't care about the quality, don't care about is it the best thing. Don't care about any of that. Just get it out there, right? A wonderful thing about the internet is that if you want to learn about a topic, the best way is to create content about it that isn't quite right, because the wonderful, primarily men of the internet will come and tell you right away. So it's like, as long as you're willing to be wrong, you can learn anything on the internet for free.
Do you know what? I used to be afraid to publish things on the internet, right? And especially at the beginning of my dev education career, when I was in public on the internet, I would triple check, quadruple check all of my work just to proof it for the reply guys. But you know what? I don't care anymore because who cares? And if I need correcting, then great, I will learn. I will be curious. A lot of the time I don't need correcting, but that's a confidence thing and that's an experience thing. And you can only get better at it and be wrong less of the time the more you do it. And so again, that's another case for the long game.
Yeah, I think too. I mean, listen, since we're all admitting our stories here, I mean, when I started this whole like, hey, I'm gonna post online in 2020, I was met with a ton of resistance. I mean, I had people tell me like 2 years into it that they didn't know why I did it, that they were haters. I mean, literally, like I had people come to me a few years later, and it's like, but I had this conviction that I wanted to help people, and I knew the only way to do it was to post online. And for me, it's like I've been met with so much resistance. I've had former CMOs trying to shut me down at past companies. I've had, you know, a lot of side comments. And so, but for me, it's like, I'm not doing it. I'm just doing it for me. And I think I truly think the biggest thing holding anybody back is fear. Like fear to slide into someone's DMs, fear to, you know, I mean, Salma, like I saw you on Jason Langsdorff thing and I was like, oh my gosh, she's incredible. Like she's so well polished. Like I love her accent. It's amazing. I can hear her talk all day. She's not going to want to respond to me. And to be totally frank, and I was like, you know what, just send the DM. Like Taylor, I deal with it all the time. You know, I literally had, there's a favorite podcast of mine. They're huge, like top 10 in like the App Store for business podcast consistently. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to fire off a DM to one of the guys to come on my podcast. And in my head, I was like, he's going to say no. He's probably not going to respond to me. And literally he got back to me, he goes, let's do it. And I was like, what? So again, like I truly believe like if you can get out of your own way, I think the job search in your career is going to skyrocket because it has mine.
And I would say I have this always when hiring junior developers, that I have to teach them to ask questions, because there's a natural, I think for most people, when you're in the job, you have this natural, I'm not going to take the time of someone more senior. I'm not going to interrupt them or disturb them. Yep. And you kind of have to hammer the point down saying, yes, you do, because that's their job. That is why I pay them more money, is because I need them to bring you up. That is literally the point in their paycheck. It's not because they type faster. This is why they're here. This is a very important part of their job. And I find that it's always the senior engineers that take most of my time, because they're the one that have questions all the time. And that's how it's supposed to be, right? They're supposed to do that. You're supposed to use your teammates. And the same works in applying for work and all these things, right?
And I think also there is a tendency for less experienced people to think, I should be able to do this on my own. And that's why they're not going to ask the questions. But that can only just put you behind in terms of development and progression. No one knows what they're doing, I think, is the bottom line.
I have no idea.
Really. No one knows. But we all come to conclusions together. We all decide to learn together and have discussions. And that's just, again, it's like having a child. No one knows what they're doing when they have their first child, but you have to discuss with your partner what the next step is, and then you learn, and it becomes Slightly easier, but never too easy. But and that is the way of the world. Like, and again, asking questions, like you said, Taylor, builds relationships and shows your curiosity. So I think that cannot be understated.
Yeah, and I want to, again, going back to what Andrea said too, like there's such a hunger for senior devs to give back. Like so much so we're actually launching an ambassador program at Torque where we have senior developers who sign up, who want to give back, who have never had the opportunity to give back because of their work environment. And we're matching them up with mentees within the Torque community. And like I've seen that throughout my career is that there's so many senior folks who want to give back. So I want to encourage anybody who's listening to this, like use that to your advantage and don't be afraid to go for the ask.
And for those seniors, like if I'm hiring a senior, I look at your CV and it says you had jobs. You will talk about your achievements in those. And I mean, okay, I don't have a way of validating how much were you part of this thing. I just kind of see jobs on a CV, right? But if you were mentoring people outside of work, like that is another point. I'm going to value that more than half of the stuff on your CV. If I know you can probably do the technical part and I know you are spending your time mentoring juniors, again, you moved up my list right there, right? It was a very small things. It doesn't have to be 10 hours a week. It's a small thing. It moves up my list of going, okay, that person is more interesting. That one, I'm going to talk to them first.
And you don't necessarily need to be a senior necessarily in order to mentor and share knowledge either. And so even as someone with less experience, if you are taking part in things in your community, or maybe even going to workshops and working with other people, or mentoring someone who has zero experience, that again is going to level you up. And I think a lot of people can potentially think that mentoring, oh, it's another job, it's loads of work. But like Taylor said, it could be a 6-minute chat every week. Someone comes with one question, you give them your take, you point them towards some resources, and you inspire them a little bit. And that's all that mentoring needs to be sometimes.
I would actually, on top of that, say when it comes to creating educational content and teaching some topic, it is a good thing not to be too senior, because there are things that I'm really bad at teaching because I learned them 24 years ago. And I just don't remember why they were difficult, because I've been in this developer world and mindset for like 2 decades. So for me, it's second nature, but it isn't for someone learning the first time. And if you still remember the pain of wrapping your head around a topic, you have a unique perspective that's very valuable. Go write about that. Go talk about that at meetups, because it helps a ton.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I want to get this off my chest too. I don't want this to go unnoticed, doing a lot of conversations. I do want everybody to be confident in their tell me about yourself question. So that sets the tone for the entire interview. Every time I get on a call with a new person, I go, so what's up? Tell me about yourself. That question is messed up all the time. And so I do want to say, like, have confidence, know who you are. I saw somebody tweet this the other day. They go, when I ask you about yourself, I don't care about your goldfish. All right. So in terms of like answering that question, craft it to the job you're interviewing for. Give a little bit about yourself. Do a little research. A little research goes a long way of the people who you're interviewing with. Maybe you went to the same university, bring that up, keep it short, keep it simple, but be confident. I think a lot of people are like, my resume isn't getting me in the door. No, based off my conversation with you, you don't know how to talk about yourself. So that's what's keeping you from getting in the door. So I do want to make it apparent. I did want to bring that up on this because that's just something I'm seeing a lot of right now. And I think people really need to work on speaking and delivery. And my best way to do that, and it's going to be painful. Open up your phone, turn the video on, chat GPT 10 basic interview questions, answer them, and then watch your video again. I will tell you, You will learn a lot about yourself. I learned that sometimes I move one side of my lip further up than the other. That was crazy. And so I've had to work on that and like move my mouth a little easier or better. So again, like, please nail the about me question. I think it's incredibly important.
Definitely. And recording yourself is a very, very good idea when practicing this. I've never done it for practice, but I do a lot of videos as part of my job. And especially the start, it was cringe, I would say. There was a lot of things like, stop saying that.
Yeah.
Stop doing that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it takes time. It's not like you spot it and then, I'll never do it again, right? It is something you have to teach yourself. But yeah, it's super valuable.
And on that note as well, I know probably a lot of interviews are conducted virtually, remotely now, and not in person. I would say don't read from a script. I used to make videos where I would read from a script. I got my fancy new prompter, and it was all great, and I wasn't confident enough in what I was delivering, because I was afraid that the reply guys would correct me. So I had to like give myself that buffer of having a script, so I knew everything was meticulously checked and planned. But the difference in my non-scripted videos to my scripted videos is worlds apart. And I don't use that prompter anymore. I don't script anything anymore. And it takes a little bit more time to like become familiar with the material and make sure you can deliver it in a way that you can like go on tangents and stuff. But obviously most people know about themselves, so they don't really need a script. But don't make that mistake, and speak from your personality and your heart. And just sometimes jobs aren't going to be a fit for you when you tell people about yourself. Yeah, and that is okay. And if you get that vibe, that's fine. Like dating.
I'm telling there's so much that comes into play. I
do have one controversial question I want to ask you.
Sure.
I don't condone this. I've never done this. But so a lot of people might think that in order to get noticed, get their foot in the door, get noticed by recruiters and hiring managers, do they need to embellish their CV a little bit? You know, maybe do a little bit of lying, a few extra bullet points, a few extra things. And then once they get in the door, they can wow the hiring managers with their amazing personality. What do you think about that?
I think that's a terrifying thing to do. That is absolutely terrifying. I was at a conference one time, and I was listening to a panel and around interviewing, and the interviewer went, I had a hiring manager ask me, this isn't quite the same, but like the intentionality of it, asked me something I did back in like 10 years ago. Right. And the whole point of that was like to put stuff on your resume you can actually speak to. That makes me incredibly nervous. Like I would never put something on my resume that I couldn't speak to. Now, I did talk in my talk this past weekend of like, hey, if you're writing your resume, give me quantitative stats. How many users, how much revenue did you help drive? At the end of the day, like you can never get that totally right, but like you can ballpark it. I'm fine with that. But like if you're talking about like, let's say you use AWS. I'm gonna try to do something here, and like you said you used S3 in depth, but like you maybe only touched it for like one project or something, and you're out here saying that like whatever, like that's gonna be ferreted out really really fast. Like people are gonna hiring managers can figure that out, and so I would only put on your resume what needs to go on your resume. I do think people take that too literal, and then your resume is super brief. I do think your resume needs to tell a story. I think we could do a whole conversation on how to write a resume in LinkedIn, but like when it comes to writing your resume, I want to know why you were hired, like what were you brought in to solve, how did you solve it, and like what tools and technologies did you use to solve it, and give me specific milestones and give me specific accomplishments. Most everybody's resume reads like a chore chart or like a task list. Like, I woke up and made my bed, I woke up and drank some water. Like I don't need to know that stuff. I want to know like how you move the needle. But yeah, I would absolutely not fabricate. Also, stop using Chat GPT to write your resume. Like, I can tell it's terrible, it's awful. So stop that. Please stop that.
I very much agree. I would also say I've never lied on my CV, but I also don't think I've ever applied for a job where I met all the criteria.
Oh, yeah,
Like,
yeah.
There's
yeah.
always at least one thing where it's like, no, I've never done that.
Yeah. I think, well, and then this is a whole conversation for the hiring manager side of things, but like, why would you hire somebody that has 100% of your skills? Because they're not going to stay there, right?
But that's just because people are bad at writing job specifications.
Oh, don't even get me started.
They
I
put
have a whole
way too many requirements
I
on
have a
it.
whole conference talk on how to write job descriptions properly. I think job descriptions are the most underrated. It's great developer marketing. If you have a really good job description, like, developers will share it, be like, "Oh my gosh, I applied to this job. It's so much fun." Like, and then you want better inbound candidates, write better job descriptions. I mean, it's not hard. Anyways, I have a whole rant around.
I have a question for you, because this is something I personally have an opinion on that is very much colored by personal experience. Cover letters.
Ooh.
What is your take on cover letters?
If I had $1 for every time I got asked this question, I would have lots of dollars.
Ooh.
I
That's your new business model.
Yeah, there you go. So it is interesting. As a traditional agency recruiter, right? There's two types of recruiters. There's in-house and there's agency. As a typical agency recruiter, we were kind of your cover letter, right? So we dealt with the hiring manager. Andreas, you need to hire somebody from me. I would send you the candidate and I would say, I met with this person. They can do this, 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 and this. They were great. Personality was great. Like, I was kind of the cover letter for people, right? But I do think, and going back to Lawrence's talk I literally had yesterday, he had a cover letter that he molded for each job intentionally, whether they asked for it or not. So for me, I think in today's market, I think you need to give as much supporting documentation as you feasibly can. But it's got to, again, going back to intentionality, you have to customize it. It can't just be this, blanket thing that's super vague. I read a lot of cover letters. They're usually super vague. I have no, they're just like, I'm a great person and I can talk well to people and I'm a good leader. And it's like, how, why, like, I can't, why, like, why would you put that? Give me supporting examples. So, I'm a fan of them. I think you need to do as much as you feasibly can to get in the door right now. But I think, again, most people fall short on the cover letters too.
The last cover letter I wrote was for my first job in developer education. And so that was in 2020. And I got a bit creative with it. I wrote it as an education article, because that's what I was going to be writing in that job.
I like that.
And I sold me as like a developer tool. A little bit nerdy, but like, it worked.
There you go. Well, and that's what I'm saying.
Nice.
I think the resume needs to be like very black and white, non-personality, like very simple. You can let the cover letter is like where the personality shines a little bit. So I agree with that. 100%.
Yeah. I think I agree very much. I think my 2 cents is to let people know that a cover letter can hurt you.
Mm-hmm. I have heard that too.
And I would say, on pure statistics, I would say I've received more cover letters where the candidate would have better out not sending one. Like, if you are writing me a letter saying, I'm very passionate about technology and delivering high quality products, like, you have to fight really hard to get back from that.
Yeah, like, I think people are just like, the word vomit and fluff out there, and AI is not helping whatsoever with any of this, is awful. And that's what I'm saying. Like, I think, like, I've even had a conversation on my life. Who was it? Was it Curtis Kemple at Slack? about actually like putting some misspellings in there to like show that you're like a real human being. I'm not saying your CV needs to be littered with like misspelled words, but like I think they're just this whole like I'm passionate about people and I'm a great people leader and I'm passionate about technology and I love everybody and everything's great, and it's just like no. Like I have openly said, my joke, and my wife hates me saying this, but my joke is like, I hate people. I don't hate people because that's my entire job is to love on people. But like I'm an introvert and people tire me after a certain amount of time. So it's this big conundrum, and I kind of play into it. That's kind of my whole shtick. But like, I would probably put that in my CV as like a little like self-deprecating, make myself real situation. But it's like these cover letters are just word vomit, and it's awful.
Yeah.
And as someone who has hired people as well, like I don't want to read all that vomit. Like I would rather you wrote me a poem or a haiku.
Yeah, I want to be fun. I want it to be fun and enjoyable if I got to take time to read this thing.
Make me want to meet you.
Yeah.
Rather than be put in the same category as everyone else. And I think maybe that kind of thing was appropriate 20 years ago, maybe because it was a whole new thing and things were different and new. But I think time has passed, and we can do different things and be creative.
As a great Aaron Francis said, you can just do things.
Yes. You can.
But yeah, and I think that's an interesting take about 20 years ago. I feel like COVID like tore the veil per se of the super professional buttoned up and like the conversational speak, because we were in everybody's homes, right? I mean, like we're technically in all of our homes right now, our offices, wherever we're at, right? There's just this level of not to be weird, but like intimacy in a way where it's like, hey, I see inside your house. Sometimes kids are running around, dogs are around, like, and I feel like that was like lifted. And I feel like now nobody resonates with professional speak anymore, which is a whole nother thing I have with like developer marketing and all that stuff. I posted something about hand dryers versus paper towels on LinkedIn on a Saturday. It went nuts. It wasn't about writing a resume. It wasn't about finding a job. It was about paper towels versus hand dryers. Because I think people just want to make a connection right now, and this fluff is just not the way to do it.
Well, LinkedIn is the new Twitter. So, I mean, all the content that used to be on Twitter, we now moved to LinkedIn. Yeah.
We could do a whole podcast on hand dryers versus paper towels.
Oh yeah. I'm team paper towels, but I'm not great for the environment.
I don't know if hand dryers are they? It's a different episode. Different episode. I know the Dyson one are like the most effective way to spread germs over a whole room.
Correct, because it like sprays everything.
Yeah, it's like by far the worst possible option. Yeah.
Maybe I'm team trousers.
Ooh.
There you go.
I feel like this means we've covered everything we need around job seeking.
Yeah,
and,
I feel like we've.
Yeah.
I feel like you should start the episode with this clip.
We should do the little snack bits at the start.
Yeah.
We haven't done that.
Snack bit. Very good. Yeah. This podcast is clearly evolving organically. And, the first couple of episodes, I didn't even introduce the hosts. So we're getting somewhere.
Well, we did say don't read from a script. So, I mean.
Yes.
Yes,
we are dog fooding our own techniques.
There you go.
Yes.
There you go. I love it.
Well, Taylor, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your wisdom. And obviously, talk.dev, we're going to link it in the description. If you're a developer or want to be a developer, go there, join the community. They're currently lacking at least 70 million developers. But maybe even more. I don't know. So yeah, go do your bit.
I love it. Wait, you want me to pitch it or something?
Oh yeah. Oh, go pitch it for sure. Yeah.
Okay. Please join the Torque community. It's great. Thank you.
Very good. Yeah.
And thank you, Taylor. And with that, we will see you next time on Pixels with Purpose.